At the beginning of the chapter, we see Kim and her mom. Kim's mom introduces him to her friend's daughter and explains that she will live with them on their house's second floor. Hearing this, Kim immediately begins to whisper to his mom, asking why she would suddenly bring a girl to live in their house. Getting right back at him, the mother tells Kim that it's her house, and she will do as she pleases. Frowning, Kim turns around to greet the girl and sees that she already has her hand out, introducing herself as Lee Min-chae. With a stutter, Kim greets her back and introduces himself as Kim Jae-hyuk. Our shy boy here is 17 years of age, as well as Lee. Furthermore, he lives in a 2-story house. Kim and his mom live on the first floor, whereas on the second floor, Lee will live there now. Thereafter, Lee asks Kim if he goes to Youngmin High School, and reveals that she will be transferring there the next day. Lee then suggests that they both get along since they will be together most of the time from now on. Soon, Kim's mother leaves, asking Kim to take care of Lee. After her departure, Lee immediately pulls out a cigarette and asks Kim for a lighter. Hearing this, Kim begins to act as if she is offering him drugs and begins to sweat heavily, wondering if she is asking for a lighter. Lee then questions Kim if he doesn't even have a lighter while referring to him as a dumbass, something that he actually is. Lee then begins to call Kim a loser, which triggers a memory. He recalls how bullies in the Youngmin High School also refer to him as a loser. Later, at the school, Kim is sitting with a boy who is looking for a chance to bully him. He then asks Kim to go and get him some milk since he is thirsty, an offer that Kim instantly refuses. However, in return, he receives something embarrassing, a tight slap on his face that echoes throughout the entire room. The bully then explains to Kim to get something if he ever asks for it. Later, Kim seems to have brought a different type of burger than the bully wanted, for which Kim immediately apologizes, explaining that he forgot. At first, the bully seems to be compliant, but that's not something suitable for someone labeled as a bully. So, he goes on to show his true self and punches Kim right in the abdomen, asking how many hits he would like to receive. Although Kim answers 3, the bully decides to mess with Kim more and decides to hit him 9 times as a joke. However, suddenly another student warns the bully of the arrival of the teacher, causing him to stop hitting Kim. As the students settle, the teacher proceeds to introduce a new transfer student, and it happens to be none other than Lee Min-chae. Seeing her, Kim is quick to realize that she is the one who just moved onto the second floor of his house. Although he is stunned while looking at her, the other students find her pretty. The teacher then asks Lee to sit behind Kim as that's the only spot available. Hearing his name, Lee is shocked to see that he is the same loser who is living 1 floor below her. She then makes her way to the seat behind Kim. There, she asks Kim not to act as if he knows her. On the other hand, Kim sees this as an easy task since he is already too shy to admit that he knows her. However, he still believes that Lee should somehow be helped, so before leaving the class, he gives her a map of the school. Later, the bully Sangbom encounters Kim once again and proceeds to give him the beating that was pending from earlier. But this time, Sangbom has decided to hit Kim on his jaw. However, he only stops after the first hit, surprising Kim to a great extent. Apparently, Sangbom has heard from somewhere that Kim is a genius student, and now he needs his help. As it turns out, Sangbom's mother has asked him to pass his exams if he wants to go abroad to study. For this, he needs Kim's help to pass his exams. However, Kim is confused as to how he can be of help. Referring to him as a dumbass, Sangbom proceeds to knee-kick Kim on the abdomen, stating that he wants him to make some cheat sheets for him. Now, Kim is conflicted about what to do, since he seems to be aware that if he gets caught, then it will be a nightmare for him, and if he refuses Sangbom's request, then it will also be a nightmare for him. This thought creates an angry reaction on Kim's face, but it soon gets noticed by Sangbom, who then punches Kim on the face. Shortly after, Kim agrees to fulfill Sangbom's request. With blood pouring out of his mouth and tears falling from his eyes, Kim wishes that he was better at fighting instead of studying to teach those bullies a lesson for a lifetime. Later that day, Kim returns home and is asked by his mother to call Lee down so she can have dinner with them as well. Although hesitant, Kim makes his way and knocks on the door of Lee. There, he mistakes a song as Lee asking him to come in, and when she sees Kim walk into her room while she is getting out of the shower, she grabs the nearest thing to her, a coffee pot, and throws it at Kim, knocking him out. After a while, Kim wakes up and explains to Lee that he misheard her permitting him to come in. Lee then calls Kim a creep and threatens to rip his limbs off if he walks into her room uninvited ever again. At dinner, Lee finds Kim's mother's soybean paste to be very delicious. However, Kim's mother reveals that she found out from Min-seon, Lee's mother, that she likes soybean paste. She then questions Lee as to why she came to live in Seoul all alone, and Lee explains that her grandfather has offered one of his buildings to one of his grandchildren, who makes it to a university in Seoul. Lee further reveals that she has only done sports so far, and the studying part will be new for her. Thereafter, she discovers that Kim is actually a top position holder in his school, surprising her greatly. Before leaving, Lee whispers to Kim, telling him that she wants to talk to him. They then make their way to an alley, down the stairs, where Lee lights up a cigarette and tells Kim that she wants his help with studying. However, Kim quickly refuses, stating that he does not like bullies, which is why he won't be helping her. After saying that, he proceeds to leave, and along the way, he gets so many offers from Lee, such as getting hooked up with a beautiful girl with big breasts. However, this offer is overheard by some goons around the neighborhood, who then approach Lee, telling her that they would like to get the girl's number. However, the goon leader notices that Lee herself is too pretty. This causes him to grab her hands to harass her even more. Meanwhile, Kim is panicking, not knowing what to do. He suddenly begins to contact the cops to make them aware of the ongoing situation, until he is left shocked when suddenly Lee proceeds to knock out the leader with just one knee kick on his face. This absolutely stuns Kim as he stands there, wondering what the hell is going on. Meanwhile, the remaining two goons charge toward Lee. She then proceeds to get in a proper stance, taking Kim by surprise yet again as he begins to recall what type of sports Lee was talking about earlier. There, the goons get knocked one after the other without doing any damage to her. With that, Lee has taken out 3 grown-ass men on her own, without any outside help, and this entire scene has been witnessed by Kim, who still cannot believe what his eyes just saw. He then quickly makes his way to Lee. That's when Lee finds out that Kim didn't leave, making her angry since he didn't call the cops. Kim then questions Lee about what type of sports she did that she mentioned earlier, and discovers that she learned martial arts. This immediately makes Kim realize that this is a perfect opportunity for him to learn something to stand up to his bullies. So he offers to help Lee study, and in exchange asks her to teach him martial arts. As Kim offers Lee to teach him how to fight, and he will teach her how to study, this appears as a good enough offer, but gets refused by Lee in an instant. She explains that there is no way she is going to do it. When Kim questions why, Lee explains that she will have to be very close to Kim if she is to teach him martial arts. They will have to be so close to each other that they will almost be hugging and smelling each other's sweat, and that's something that Lee has no intention of doing with a loser of such caliber as Kim. She then suggests Kim go to a gym if he wants to learn how to fight that badly, but Kim explains that there is a reason why he doesn't go to the gym, as all the bullies go to the gyms around the area. Lee comments that it's not her problem and proceeds to take her leave. Before leaving, she explains that she will be taking care of her studies on her own, and asks Kim to learn how to fight on his own. Kim cannot believe that his offer was refused since he believed it to be a good offer. He then soon leaves as well. While on the bed, Kim recalls the way Lee was fighting earlier. He seems to be very impressed by her moves and cannot get them out of his head. Imagine seeing your idol fighting in the same way that you wish for. That's how Kim is feeling, and his interest keeps on rising as he begins to imagine how his life would be if he can fight with Sangbom just like Lee. He wishes that his offer would be accepted, but there's nothing he can do, so he proceeds to sleep for the night. The following morning, Kim's mother is leaving and asks him to give one of the sandwiches to Lee and have one for himself. As usual, Kim is hesitant to go to Lee's room to give her a sandwich, but he seems to have no choice this time as well. After making his way to Lee's doorstep, he knocks on the door and receives no response for the first few seconds. As he is about to leave, he hears Lee asking him to come in. Not mishearing anything this time, Kim walks into Lee's room and immediately gets startled after seeing her in a short dress, thinking that she is not wearing anything to cover her underparts. However, Lee reveals that she still has her shorts on. Kim immediately apologizes, explaining that his mom asked him to give Lee a sandwich, which is why he has come. Lee asks him to put the sandwich on the table and leaves for the bathroom. However, as Kim is about to leave, he notices that Lee gets her education from elementary books. He opens one of the books and sees that Kim is learning how to spell basic fruits. Shortly after, Lee walks out of the bathroom and sees that Kim is messing with her stuff, causing her to grow furious. She frowningly asks Kim to get out of her room. But before leaving, Kim once again asks her if she has changed her mind on his offer, stating that she would not learn shit with those elementary books. This angers Lee even more, causing her to throw a book at Kim, but this time, he actually leaves. Later that night, Kim receives a phone call from his mother, who explains that she has gone out and asks Kim to give Lee some sweet potatoes that she put on the table for her. Kim agrees this time without frowning over his mom's request, and makes his way to Lee's room. However, he looks over at the stairs and sees that Lee is standing there, calling him out for creeping on her. Kim quickly explains that his mother asked him to give some sweet potatoes to Lee, hence the reason why he came. Lee then asks Kim to wait as she has something to talk to him about. She then reveals to him that she got rejected by 3 academies because of the level test. Lee seems to have failed drastically in these tests, which is why she got rejected. On the other hand, Kim realizes that Lee indeed does have elementary school skills. He then recalls how he already warned Lee that the way she is studying won't take her anywhere. Thereafter, Lee decides to accept Kim's offer from earlier and explains that she will be teaching him how to fight, and in exchange, he will have to help her study. The scene then shifts to the first day of their tutoring, and Kim starts giving Lee some lessons and how to call certain things. Out of all those, Lee only seems to know what cigarettes are and how they are pronounced in English. This makes Kim concerned, as he realizes that Lee doesn't know anything about basic English. He then moves on to teach her the 26 alphabet in the English language. Later, it was time for them to switch from study lessons to fighting lessons, and now the roles have shifted to Kim being a student and Lee being a teacher. Lee explains to Kim that he needs to find out what type of guy he is against first before getting into a fight with him. Kim did not know that such a thing was required to learn how to fight, and so he remains confused. The two then make their way to the school where Lee takes Kim's support to peek from over a wall to understand what type of a guy Joe Sangbom is. Shortly after, Sangbom walks out with his friends and begins to smoke. Meanwhile, Kim is finding it difficult to keep carrying Lee's weight as she is too heavy for him. Thereafter, Lee discovers that Sangbom has a fight scheduled in a parking lot after school ends and decides that they both will go and closely observe Sangbom's fighting style. On the other hand, Kim gives up, making Lee fall from his shoulders and causing her to furiously hit him. Later, Kim questions Lee as to why they are going to watch Sangbom's fight, prompting Lee to explain that this way he can learn Sangbom's fighting style. In the parking lot, Lee comes across a girl who is aware that she is a new student in their school. Moreover, she seems to be aware of Lee's history of being a bully in her previous school and proceeds to offer her a cigarette. However, Lee refuses, stating that she just had one before coming to watch the fight. Meanwhile, Kim is standing behind Lee looking all suspicious as he has a hoodie covering up his entire face. He is aware that the situation will turn bad if he is to be spotted here since losers are meant to stay away from the fighting areas. Meanwhile, Sangbom confronts his opponent, who seems to be furious at Sangbom for breaking his friend's finger. However, Sangbom finds this to be a very unusual reason for the other guy to pick up a fight with him. The guy then asks Sangbom to just apologize, who then proceeds to squeeze his eyeball, showing his dominance. With that, Sangbom goes on to beat the shit out of the other guy, while the others stand there and cheer for Sangbom, some even finding him sexy during all this. Meanwhile, Lee observes him closely. Back in the fight, the guy is absolutely beaten up as he proceeds to apologize, asking Sangbom to stop hitting him. However, he is not done as he goes on to strike the guy's finger with a fire extinguisher, making him meet the same fate as his friend. Later that night, Kim stays with his head down as he believes that there is no way he can take on Sangbom since he is too strong. Getting annoyed by his constant whining, Lee tells Kim to stop and assures him that he will be able to fight Sangbom in just 1 month. But obviously, judging by the level of confidence Kim has in himself, he does not believe in Lee's words, prompting her to ask him to trust her. She even asks him if he wants to continue or not, leading Kim to plunge into his thoughts. He seems to be aware that it is almost impossible for him to defeat Sangbom on his own, but he is also not willing to give in since he cannot be bullied all his life, so he finally agrees. 1 month later, the midterm exams are going on. Kim meets with Lee and expresses that he is scared to encounter Sangbom. However, Lee asks him to leave it to her. As the exam is about to begin, Lee proceeds to fold a piece of paper and throws it on Sangbom's desk. At first, Sangbom thinks that Lee is very quick to help him with the exams, but when he opens the piece of paper, he understands that Kim is challenging him to a fighting duel. The teacher reminds the students that cheating is not allowed and announces the commencement of the test. Meanwhile, Sangbom reads the papers and grows extremely furious after seeing someone that he used to bully standing up to him. The scene then shifts to a month ago. Lee is making Kim carry her up the stairs. With the life being sucked out of his soul, Kim questions Lee about how this is going to help him fight Sangbom. This causes Lee to act up and annoyingly asks Kim to just do what he is told without asking many questions. Lee then sees a perfect spot and asks Kim to take her there. After reaching the spot, Kim finally gives in and gets on all fours after getting exhausted from climbing up all those stairs. Thereafter, Lee reveals that she just used Kim as a chair since he forgot her slippers down the stairs and forgot to carry them with him. This greatly angers Kim, but there's not much he can do about it. He further mentions to Lee that her buttocks are twitching, causing her to immediately get down from his back, calling him a disgusting punk for taking a feel out of her buttocks, once again blaming the poor guy for something that he never did or intended to do. Shortly after, the two make their way to a nearby restaurant where Lee asks Kim to eat as much as he wants. Now that's something Lee would definitely say when she is not the one paying for the food. She further tells Kim to gain 10 kilos since he will need that strength to overpower Sangbom. However, Kim has no idea how it will be possible for him to gain 10 kilos in a short period of time. This leads Lee to point out the most obvious way for Kim to gain weight, eating a lot. After lunch, Kim is once again carrying Lee on his back. This time, he decides to ask Lee if she is going to start teaching him some real moves to fight and hopes that she won't bail on him after using him as a chair and whatnot for all this time. Lee then assures Kim that they will get to that part once her delivery arrives. As they make their way back to their home, Lee sees that the delivery has arrived. She then asks Kim to carry it to the roof and change his clothes, as they will be getting to the real part of the training. After settling on the roof, Lee goes on to show what's inside the delivery package. It turns out to be training equipment. Thereafter, Lee reveals that she asked an old friend to hook her up with all the equipment, and that old friend happens to be the same girl with huge breasts that was Kim's type. Kim then immediately gets lost in his thoughts of being tempted by Lee's friend, but immediately pulls himself out of it, realizing that this is not the time or the place to think about such things. However, as he is lost in his thoughts, Lee does not let the opportunity go to waste to call Lee out for thinking something perverting. Lee then announces that they will be starting from the most basic piece of training. She goes on to teach Kim how to use the 1-2 punch. How it goes is that first the left hand will come outside to hit the punch, and then immediately the second hand will come outside to hit the punch. Following this is the low kick to disbalance the opponent, and Lee depicts it properly to Kim, asking him to practice these 3 moves like crazy, since these are the basic and probably the best moves for Kim to use ultimately on Sangbom to defeat him. Lee tells Kim to at least practice these moves for 2 weeks to become a pro. Starting from the same day, Kim begins to properly learn the 3 moves. However, at first, he is doing them very late, causing Lee to teach him how to do them quickly. She even hands Kim over some dumbbells and tells him to do it quickly this time. Just like that, Lee keeps practicing for many days. The sun would go down, and he would keep practicing. The sun would rise, and he would keep practicing. All this time, Lee is observing Kim very closely, keeping an eye on his body movements and making sure that he stays in the right posture. As days pass by, she even begins to feel impressed by Kim's progress in these moves and even tells Kim that he is getting a bit better. She then brings in the pads, ties them on her hands, and mentions to Kim that he will be practicing some kicks now. Just like that, 2 hard weeks of training pass by in no time. Kim has finally started to use the right form when using the 1-2 punch and the low kick. Lee is finally relieved that her time invested has not been wasted, even though she definitely thought of quitting somewhere in the middle during Kim's fighting lessons. As they are done with the attacking moves, it is time for Lee to teach Kim how to tackle. But the dumbass thinks that Lee is talking about the tackle such as in football. Lee quickly explains that a tackle is where Kim will be throwing his opponent down to gain the upper hand in the fight. Moreover, she seems to be aware of the fact that Kim is a newbie, so just striking won't be enough for him, as he will get crushed. So, tackling is something that he can use to his advantage. So, she asks Kim to try and throw her down, but Kim doesn't understand. Lee then explains in simple words and asks Kim to just tackle her. Kim immediately begins to think that he is a man, and if he uses all his might to push Lee, he will be able to throw her down since she is a girl. However, when she tries to execute his place, his expectations go all the way down, and Lee doesn't even budge from her place. She stands there, confused by what Kim is trying to do. She then proceeds to strike his face with her knees, telling him that this will be the outcome if he tackles like that. It is now time for Lee to tackle Kim and show him how it's actually done. Thereupon, Lee reminds Kim that Jo Sangbom is much stronger and bigger than him, so the plain tackle would result in Kim getting crushed by the giant, which is why she has decided to teach Kim a special tackle that will definitely ensure Kim having an opportunity to defeat Sangbom. For the next 2 weeks, Kim undergoes the harshest period of training that he has ever had. He had to plank while Lee stayed on top of him. He had to climb up the stairs while carrying Lee. He had to perform princess squats while carrying Lee. He had to practice punch and kicks with Lee. He had to learn various techniques with Lee, and he even had to spar with Lee to get through his training period. During the spar, Kim performs so well, and his moves can be seen getting better and better each time that he fights, and this is something that even gets noticed by Lee. During this time, Kim also tutored Lee as it was also a part of their agreement. With that, 1 month passes in the blink of an eye, and the two are at the school. There, Lee asks Kim if he is ready. Although Kim responds that he is ready, the sweat can be seen dripping from his face like crazy. With a trembling voice, Kim asks Lee about what she wrote on that piece of paper that made Sangbom this mad. However, Lee does not answer and tells Kim to mind his own business, reminding him that this is not the time or the place to think or discuss what she wrote. What matters for Kim now is to find a way to win this fight, and maybe his life will be better without all the bullying. With a determined look on his face, Kim proceeds to walk up to Sangbom, who is standing in the middle of a huge crowd, smoking a cigarette, waiting to crush Kim once the fight begins. Lee asks Kim to go and win the fight as Kim walks out with determination pouring out of his facial expressions. But time will only tell if this determination will cause results to go in favor of Kim or against him. We then shift to the scene of the night before this fight. Lee lights up a cigarette and begins to smoke while sitting in an awkward pose. Accompanies to Kim, Lee questions him if he is nervous about tomorrow's fight, and even offers him to smoke, but Kim refuses immediately, stating that he is good. Thereafter, Lee calls Kim out for being scared, just by thinking of a fight. However, Kim believes that being nervous is normal since he has never had fights before. This appears to be the first time when our scared little protagonist will have his first fight. Seeing his behavior, Lee asks Kim to stand up and take off his shirt. Kim immediately begins to shower Lee with questions as to why he should take off his shirt. Thereafter, Lee tells Kim in a daunting tone to do just as she asks without asking her any questions or objecting. Kim then proceeds to take off his shirt. Although his body looks lean at first when Lee asks him to try and flex his abs, Kim proceeds to do so, and oh boy. He indeed does have abs showing up, and it appears that Lee's time has not been wasted. She then asks Kim the same thing, if he thinks that she has wasted time on training him for an entire month. She even points out to Kim how his body looks like he is ready to get involved in a fight now. She further suggests Kim stop thinking that he has no chance of winning the fight, as this thought will only take him down the path where he will definitely lose the fight. She asks Kim to have some confidence, as it is the very key to success in anything. Kim then asks Lee how long she is going to call him a loser, since it is very offensive to him. Hearing this, Lee is astonished by the fact that Kim is getting triggered for being called a loser in just a matter of days when he hasn't gotten triggered yet for getting bullied all his life. However, Lee makes an offer to Kim. She tells him that she will stop referring to him as a loser if he wins this fight, and Kim seems to agree on this offer. She further goes ahead and hands over her lighter to Kim, telling him to hold this during his fight, as it will strengthen his punch. Kim then takes the lighter and assures Lee that he will return it to her once he wins the fight. However, Lee immediately asks him to buy her a new one, since he does not want to touch the things that have been touched by a loser. Furthermore, Kim questions Lee as to where she got the lighter from, leading her to grow annoyed. She is irritated by the fact that Kim asks a lot of questions, and even asks him if she has to explain everything to him. The scene then shifts back to the school where the stage is set for Kim to finally have his first ever fight. He is squeezing on the lighter that Lee gave him and is shaking like crazy. Kim has no idea how the bullies pile up their confidence when they get into a fight with someone, but he soon recalls Lee suggesting to him not to psych himself out, as it will make him lose the fight immediately. He seems to have belief in Lee that he can win the fight, and this makes him pick his courage up by a tiny bit. He further thinks that nothing is going to happen no matter how the fight ends anyway. If he wins, he is going back to becoming a loser, and if he loses, he will go back to becoming a loser. Kim then slowly walks into the fighting ring, followed by Sangbom walking up to him. There, Sangbom asks Kim if he has lost his mind from too much stress, and immediately receives a response from Kim, who explains that he has not lost his mind. This surprises Sangbom even more, as he proceeds to show his dominance, asking Kim where he has found all this courage. Although Kim is trembling like hell during his heated conversation with Sangbom, he maintains this posture for as long as he can. Meanwhile, the crows get ready with their camera to capture Kim's humiliation in front of the entire school. Sangbom then throws his cigarette to the side, mentioning that he has been looking forward to this encounter. The crows then begin to cheer for Sangbom, some even telling him that he is hot. They seem to be anticipating for the moment where Sangbom will beat the shit out of Kim. Sangbom then decides to give the crowd what they want and turns to Kim. He asks him about how many times he would want to be hit. This triggers a flashback of Lee telling Kim to maintain his momentum as quite literally the most important thing in a fight. She tells Kim that if he loses his momentum, then he is done for. In the present, Kim is trembling with fear, but maintains his courageous look to not look like a coward in front of Sangbom. Furthermore, he asks Sangbom to tell him how many times he would like to be hit. This provocation seems to work on Sangbom, but it does not go the way Kim was hoping it would. Kim gets in his stance, ready to strike at Sangbom when the fight begins, but as he is about to strike him with the first punch, Kim's arm turns out to be very short, and it does not even reach closer to Sangbom. On the other hand, Sangbom made his punch at the same time as Kim's, and his punch perfectly landed on Kim's face. Just like that, Sangbom has the upper hand, and he keeps on giving a good beating to Kim, punching him in his face and kicking him in his abdomen. In no time, Kim's entire face is covered in blood, and the crowd is disappointed that it was another one-side match for Sangbom. They have already opted Kim out of this match, but Lee stands there in a confident posture. While getting beaten, Kim gives up completely and apologizes to Sangbom, asking him to stop. He realizes that he cannot do anything as he is too scared to even strike back, let alone win this entire fight. Sangbom stops for a moment and makes Kim believe that he has felt pity for him, only for Kim to get kicked in his abdomen yet again. Now, Kim has been pushed into a corner, with no way for him to get out. However, Sangbom seems to have forgotten that the Forgotten Tiger is the most dangerous being. But our boy Kim is not some cornered tiger. He can barely stand on his own feet. Thereafter, he recalls Lee's earlier training sessions, where she explained to Kim that mental strength is one of the most important things for someone to stay in a fight. If someone is to lose their mental strength during a fight, then they are done for, and there will be no way for them to win. That's what seems to have occurred with Kim. Even during the training session, Kim tells Lee that his mental strength is very weak, but Lee suggests he find a way not to lose his mental strength, or he will be beaten to a pulp. However, she also has a way out for Kim if he gets cornered. She then proceeds to teach him to cling to his opponent. Now, normally the next move is to take the opponent down, but since Lee does not have that kind of strength, Lee teaches him something a bit different. She goes on to cling onto Kim and bites his ear, telling him to do the same with the opponent, as it will cause them too much pain to handle and they will be distracted. She then tells Kim to move on his side and use something that they have been practicing a lot, the 1-2 punch. In the present, Kim decides to follow Lee's teaching and proceeds to perform in the exact same way that she taught him to. Kim appears to have executed the plan perfectly, and he has done something that he never thought he would do: punch Sangbom and make him hurt. Even the crows are going insane over the fact that Sangbom got hit by a loser such as Kim. Meanwhile, Lee stands there with a smirk on her face, realizing that her time invested is paying off. At the same time, Kim lets go of a scream, telling Sangbom that they are just getting started. Kim hits Sangbom with the 1-2 punch and manages to make him bleed. Sangbom grows furious, realizing that he just got hit by a loser and cannot believe that he has let himself get punched. Meanwhile, Kim is wondering if he was supposed to fake the punch and not actually punch Sangbom. He then recalls what Lee told him afterward. Lee tells him that Sangbom will be distracted after getting hit with the 1-2 punch, and that's when the time will come for Kim to use the tackling technique. Lee notes that Kim is a newbie, so striking won't be enough for him, and he realizes that he will have to do something more to get the best outcome in this fight. She further reminds Kim that Sangbom is bigger and stronger than him, so he will have to use tackles to overcome Sangbom's prowess. Lee further notes that Kim won't be able to take Sangbom down with a plain tackle, which is why she has decided to teach Kim a special tackle: the groin tackle. She proceeds to charge toward Kim with her left shoulder pointing at his grin and rams him onto the ground. This not only makes Kim hurt in his groin, but also in his entire body. This causes Lee to explain that it is because of the fall damage that the opponent will take that their entire body will hurt with this tackle. Lee further reveals that she used this technique a lot during sparring with heavyweights. However, Kim points out that this is a dirty move and that it is totally against playing by the rules. Now we know that Kim is dumb, but his naivety is making him look and sound even dumber. The same way is felt by Lee, who calls him a dumbass and tells him that playing dirty should be the last thing he should be worried about, since the main purpose of this fight is for Kim to overpower his bully, Sangbom, to teach him a lesson. She even reminds Kim that this is not a martial arts tournament and that there is no need for him to play by the rules. Even so, in the Kudo martial arts, the groin kicks are allowed if there is a weight difference. Thereafter, Kim agrees to listen to Lee, and soon gets told by her that he will not be the one fighting dirty anyway. Lee believes that the actual person who fights dirty is Sangbam, who picks on students who are weaker than him to bully them. Such is the case for Kim. Meanwhile, in the present, Sangbam's entire focus seems to be shifted on his nosebleed, and Kim notes that he is distracted. This comes off as the perfect opportunity for Kim to follow Lee's teaching and use that groin tackle technique to seriously overpower Sangbam in this fight. Rightfully so, Kim proceeds to put into play the teachings of Lee and goes for the groin tackle. The tackle is successful, and Kim seems to have managed to throw Sangbam down. However, as Sangbam is falling, his head hits the wall, making the crowd concerned if his skull cracked or not. Meanwhile, Sangbam looks up and starts seeing blurry. As it turns out, his head is dizzy and cannot see straight. Kim uses this to its full potential to beat the crap out of Sangbam while getting on top of him. Taking all his frustration out on Sangbam, Kim keeps on punching him for ruining his school life and for bullying him for years. Kim appears to have totally submitted to his frustration, and now the mental strength has turned into emotional strength, which comes with its own downsides. Even Lee is quick to notice that Kim is being too emotional, and the fight isn't even over yet. The outcome of Kim's emotional outburst is exactly as someone would expect. Sangbam manages to push Kim away with one of his legs and proceeds to walk toward him. After holding his neck, Sangbam acknowledges how Kim seems to have learned martial arts to stand up against his bully. However, he reveals that he has borrowed some techniques from his friend as well, and proceeds to hold Kim in a guillotine choke. This dangerous move can make anyone pass out in just 7 seconds, and there is nothing really they can do about it. Sangbam mentions to Kim that he will treat him in the worst way possible once he passes out to make an example out of him for not ever messing up with Sangbam. Meanwhile, Kim is disappointed that this is how his training will be ended, with him getting humiliated toward the end. 3 seconds have already passed, and with just 4 seconds left, Kim has to find a way to somehow get out of Sangbam's guillotine choke. He immediately thinks about the lighter that he has in the grasp of his hands. He decides to use it on Sangbam's arm to get out of his headlock. Kim's plan once again works out as Sangbam immediately releases him from the guillotine choke after feeling the burn on his arm. Kim is satisfied with the results so far, but realizes that the fight isn't over yet. He still has to focus on knocking Sangbam out for him to be declared a victor in this fight. He then recalls Lee telling him to use the low kick if he ever wants to make his opponent lose their balance. Kim goes on to low kick Sangbam, causing him to plunge into a state of disbalance, giving Kim the perfect scenario to end the fight right there and then. He recalls Lee telling him to aim for the chin if he ever wanted to knock any of his opponents out. Lee explains to Kim that no matter how big or strong the opponent is, one punch on the chin will knock them out immediately if executed properly with the right amount of strength. Kim proceeds to use the punch at the chin advice from Lee and executes it perfectly, surprising everyone in the crowd. They are left with their jaws wide open as they cannot believe what they are witnessing. Meanwhile, Kim stands there in the same posture in which he punches Sangbam, unable to fathom what he has just done. Defeated the bully, Joe Sangbam. The crowd begins to wonder if the loser, Kim, won, and is absolutely stunned by the scene. Meanwhile, a smirk can be spotted on Lee's face as she whispers that Kim has obtained a hard-earned victory. However, she was confident that this was bound to happen since she was the one who trained Kim for this fight. Lee then slowly begins to walk away from the middle of the crowd who are still shocked with what just happened. Meanwhile, Kim recalls Lee's suggestion to run after the fight since all the bullies will be rushing at him. Kim decides to follow Lee's teachings once again and instantly flees the area. One of the bullies asks the other if they should be running after Kim but gets told not to. The other bully then asks him to wake Sangbam up. Excited after winning the fight, Kim runs for his home while celebrating his victory. He is head over heels after taking on his worst bully and is unable to express his joy to its full potential. The news of Kim beating the Youngman High School's strongest guy, Sangbam, spreads quickly in the entire school, and everyone and their moms heard about it. Kim starts believing that his days of getting bullied are over, but the naive boy doesn't know that this is only the beginning, as there is a lot more to come. It was just Kim's wishful thinking, and he did not consider the consequences that will come with all the popularity that he has gained in a matter of just one day. The scene then shifts to a strong, healthy boy, discovering that Joe Sangbam has been defeated in a fight by a loser named Kim. He then realizes that if he beats this loser, then indirectly, he will have beaten Sangbam. This skinny boy is Hong Dabong, who is also 17 years of age. The weight of Dabong is a staggering 110 kilograms, and he happens to be from Busan. Meanwhile, the poor Kim did not know that something mountainous was coming for him, and that he would have to face another bully in the Youngmin High School.
If you've made it this far, please step forward and press the button. Now, open your eyes, step forward, and push the button. Yes! You see? What a thrill! What a rush! That was you! Now, I want you to do something else for me. Please press the subscribe button. Come on, give it a try. Can you feel it? The glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing despair, must already be sweeping through your body. And in fact, can I say that I do believe commenting "let him cook" will lend you an air of charisma as well?
After the fight, Jo Sangbom takes a leave from school and returns after 3 days. The other students believe that Sangbom is embarrassed after noticing the depressing look on his face. Moreover, Sangbom does not even make eye contact with Lee when he walks into the class. On the other hand, Lee thought that Sangbom would be seeking revenge immediately after coming back to school. To Lee's surprise, that does not happen, and Sangbom quietly takes place on his seat without talking with anyone. Lee then gets touched with a foot from behind, and sees that it is none other than Lee, who then throws a piece of paper toward Kim, asking him to buy some bread for her. However, Kim refuses, stating that he is not her errand boy, and that she cannot order her around this easily. However, Lee shifts her eyes and asks Kim once again to get the bread. This convinces Kim to listen to Lee, so he proceeds to get up and leave the classroom. Thereafter, Kim believes that Lee deserves this much since she taught him how to overpower his bully. However, a sudden thought hits Kim that he is just following someone's order as before, but then shifts his opinion, realizing that this is his freedom. Along the way, Lee comes across a guy who seems to have recognized Kim as the guy who defeated Sangbom. As Kim walks a bit further, he gets recognized by another person. Shortly after, he gets recognized by a group of girls who then begin to take pictures of Kim. The feeling of being popular is making Kim nervous after realizing that he is now known in the entire school and that people have started acting with him as if they know him. He even comes across Daebong, who passes by Kim, telling him that he won the fight easily. The entire corridor recognizes Kim as the guy who defeated Sangbom, and now Kim does not know whether this popularity is a blessing for him or something dangerous. Kim then goes on to make his way to the cafeteria to buy some bread for Lee, and after getting out of there, he starts feeling his head being messed up. Suddenly, Kim is approached by a group of young boys who introduce themselves as outsiders from other classes. In other words, they describe themselves as losers, just like Kim Jae-hyuk. The group leader explains to Kim that he has heard of him being a loser and still defeating a bully named Sangbom. He explains that the news of a loser beating a bully filled them with pride. In the history of losers, there has never been someone who stood against the bullies in the Youngmin High School, and this is the first time that someone has taken a stand. Suddenly, 2 grown-ass men walk right in the middle of the loser group, asking them to make way for them. The outsider's leader then proceeds to lean in closer to Kim, revealing to him what he overheard in the bathroom. In a flashback, we see him sitting on top of the toilet, overhearing Daebong telling his friends that he will be taking on Kim, as he was the one to defeat Sangbom. Daebong appears to be doing so to express his dominance in front of the entire school, and make a statement that he is not someone to be messed with. The outsider's leader then tells Kim to stay safe and leaves. Meanwhile, Kim stands there, feeling uneasy after what he has just heard, and realizes that he is in great danger. Later, Lee is peacefully having dinner, but soon it gets revealed that she is sitting on top of Kim, using him as a chair while he performs his planks. Kim is annoyed by the fact that she has to sit on top of him. However, Lee disguises his response by using Kim's exercise as an excuse for her to sit on top of him. Thereafter, Kim tells her about a bully wanting to take him down. However, Lee does not respond with much enthusiasm. Kim finds this to be a bad behavior from Lee since she is his teacher, but Lee explains to Kim that he will keep on getting challenged by people, as such is the outcome of gaining popularity after defeating one of the strongest guys in school. Lee further asks Kim to quit if he cannot take this much and go back to his days of getting bullied, but Kim immediately changes his mind, realizing that there is nothing really he can do about this. Lee then mentions that she will be leaving for the day since there won't be a study lesson as the exams just finished. However, Kim reminds Lee of her education skills and mentions that the study lesson will be commenced accordingly just like the other days, causing Lee to frown over Kim. Later that night, Kim and Lee begin their study session. There, Kim asks Lee to show her exam results. Hesitant at first, she refuses to show her results, but when Kim asserts that he needs to know how well she did, Lee has no other way but to comply. It is then that Kim discovers that Lee has obtained an all-time worst exam result, even after copying his paper. When Kim tells Lee that she failed her exams very drastically, she starts blaming Kim for her results, stating that he should be the one responsible for her better results. She even reminds Kim that she helped him beat Sangbom, hence performing her part of the agreement, and demands the same from Kim. Although Kim appreciates Lee for helping him defeat Sangbom, he also reveals that he cannot make her pass her exams if she does not put in some effort. This causes Lee to misunderstand Kim's statement and call him out for implying that she does not put her efforts into studying. Kim continues by telling her that she even has to lose sleep if that's what it takes to pass her exams with flying colors, leading Lee to object, asking Kim if he wants her to die. Suddenly, Kim's mother opens the door. She appears to have brought some already pieced apples for the two. Lee immediately gets up, changes her tone and everything, and even tells her that she should have asked her to cut the apples. Seeing the change in her behavior, Kim cannot believe that Lee acts like an angel with his mother, whereas when it comes to him, she acts like a devil. Kim's mother then leaves, asking Kim to focus more on his studies. After her departure, Kim shifts his focus to Lee and asks her if she even knows how to peel off the apples. In response, Lee answers no. The two then begin to study, and just like the night passes by. During the session, it is visible that it will take Kim a lot of effort to help Lee better her grades, since she does not even seem to learn basic things, and shifts all the blame on Kim when she makes a blunder. It is past midnight now, and Kim decides that this should be the end of their studying session. Lee then asks Kim to tag along with her for a second, and the two proceed to make their way into the same alley as before. Peeking from the stairs, Kim questions Lee as to why she has to bring him with her every time she comes to smoke. This leads Lee to reveal that she saw a cop hanging around the last time when she came, which is why she brings Kim with her to keep watch for any cops lurking around. Thereafter, Kim reminds Lee about their deal of her not calling him a loser if he wins the fight with Sangbom. However, Lee abruptly refuses to say anything like that ever in her life. But after getting pressured by Kim, Lee finally agrees to call him by his actual name. She then congratulates Kim on winning the fight by referring to his last name as Jae-young and not Jae-hyuk. Noticing this, Kim is absolutely annoyed at Lee since she did not even know his real name until now. In response, Lee continues to show her absurd behavior, asking Kim to change his name, mentioning that it's not her fault, just like every other time. The two then end their night while being annoyed with one another. The next day, Kim makes his way into the classroom while thinking of ways to make Lee better her grades. Suddenly, Kim sees that Daebong is sitting on his spot, so he approaches him, announcing that it's his spot. Daebong then gets up from his seat and stands face to face with Kim. The difference can be compared to an elephant standing in front of an ant, with Daebong being the former and Kim being the latter. Daebong taps on Kim's head, telling him that he looks shit. He further questions Kim if beating him would mean that he beat Sangbom. However, Kim has no idea what this fatso is blabbering about and remains confused about his true intentions until Daebong challenged him to a fight. This causes Kim to explain that they don't have any reason to fight with one another, leading Daebong to punch Kim brutally right in his face, stating that the reasons to fight can be made on the spot while referring to Kim as a worthless shit. As Daebong slaps the shit out of Kim, he then lifts him and throws him on his back on the ground. Kim has no idea how he will take on a bulldozer like Daebong on his own. Daebong then tells Kim once again that beating him will mean that he has beaten Sangbom. With that being said, Daebong finds it fun to have easy wins, and with a smile on his face, he leaves. Meanwhile, Kim stays on the ground, thinking if this is the end of Daebong's bullying, and finds it reliving that he won't have to suffer much if this is how he bullies. Meanwhile, Lee watches all this and decides to remain quiet. The very next day, as even some kids would know, it was not the end of Daebong's bullying. He is now asking people to make way for him while he walks in the hallway with Kim hanging by his neck with his feet pointing toward the sky and his head pointing toward the ground. Turns out that Daebong woke up and decided to make Kim his lackey today. The entire school is enjoying as the skinny, shirtless Kim hangs by Daebong's neck. They further notice that it is the same guy who defeated Sangbom, and now they see that he is being toyed with. Such should be the expectation when you are a student of Youngman High School. If you think that you are the strongest, You are always going to find someone stronger than you. Daebong then takes out a spider, revealing that he caught it looking at him funny when he was using the restroom. Daebong then proceeds to move the spider closer to Kim's mouth, asking him to eat it. Thereafter, Kim immediately asks Daebong to stop, revealing that he is an arachnophobe, someone who is afraid of spiders. When Daebong sees Kim resisting what he is asked to do, he proceeds to slap him out of his misery. He then introduces himself to Kim in a way that he would get an idea of just who he has come across with. Daebong reveals that he is the one who calls all the shots in Busan, and warns Kim to just do as he is told, while giving him another punch. He then asks one of his men to open Kim's mouth even wider, and goes on to place the spider inside his mouth, causing it to slip down Kim's throat. While the bullies are having fun, Kim is absolutely devastated. The poor guy has to meet the same fate again and again, no matter how hard he works not to be bullied. He even took on Sangbom to get rid of his #1 bully, but now he has come across another one who is now making jokes of Kim, calling him a Spider-Man after making him swallow a literal spider. With tears falling out of his eyes and completely defeated, Kim questions Daebong as to why he is doing this to him. In response, he explains that he is doing this just because of the fun that he is getting out of this situation, something that a typical bully would say. He further explains that he wants to keep Sangbom in check, and the best way he can find to do that is to take on Kim. Moreover, Daebong mentions how he finds Kim's reaction to be quite funny when he is getting played with, which is why he has decided that he will continue with the bullying until he makes a statement of his dominance. He further explains to Kim that losers like him are meant to be treated this way, and advises him to get used to this and think of it as his destiny. Daebong then asks Kim to come to his class the next day to continue being his lackey, and just like that, he leaves with his men. Meanwhile, Kim stands there recalling all the hard work he did just to get on top of his bullies, and now he is on the stage where he began from. It appears that just the bully changed and nothing else did. Later that night, Kim tells Lee that they will be beginning their study lesson. However, his posture stays undefeated as he recalls all the worst things he had to suffer that day at school during his bullying session with Daebong. Lee asks him to wait as she is chatting with a friend. Meanwhile, Kim wonders if his fate is actually going to stay the same for the rest of his life. He is damn sure that there is nothing he can do about that pig-sized Daebong. Sangbom was someone Kim was able to take on, since he wasn't that big, but comparing him to Daebong would be an understatement. Kim then asks Lee if it is true that he cannot beat the pig, Daebong. Immediately, Lee agrees with Kim, realizing that there is no way someone of Kim's size would be able to take on and defeat someone of Daebong's size. But she also reveals that he can defeat Daebong. This statement piques Kim's interest greatly, as he becomes more invested in this conversation. He immediately questions Lee how he can pull it off, causing her to reveal that it's not something that can be pulled off by just anyone. She further explains that they will need some equipment for this, so she proceeded to ring the same friend who she was chatting with. Once again, it turns out to be the same friend that has big breasts. Hearing about her, Kim once again begins to fantasize about Lee's friend who also happens to be interested in boys with the likes of Kim. However, he quickly pulls himself out of these naughty thoughts, realizing this is not the time or place to think about such things. The friend's name is Sarah. As soon as she picks up the phone, Lee inquires if she has time to talk and discovers that Sarah is in a bar, drinking with a lot of hot boys around her. Lee comments how she would want to be with Sarah at that moment. Meanwhile, Kim thinks about how Lee has to study. Their conversation then shifts to the main topic, where Sarah questions Lee's purpose of the phone call. Lee then explains to Sarah that she wants some more stuff for the loser, Kim, whom she told her about. Furthermore, Lee explains that she will text her all the things that are required. Thereafter, Lee gets a stupid idea of making Kim talk with Sarah, so she hands him over the phone. Kim is absolutely shy to even talk with Sarah for at least 1 second, but somehow, he plucks up his courage and grabs the phone. Sarah then tells Kim how she hears about him all the time from Lee. She even describes to Kim his looks, wearing glasses, a nerdy face, and a loser's attitude. This makes Kim super nervous, as he has no idea how to respond, when suddenly he hears Sarah telling one of her friends that she is about to puke. The friend then goes on to help Sarah, and just like that, Kim hangs up the phone. When Lee questions Kim about what they talked about, Kim mentions not much. Later, a package arrives with the equipment that Lee asked Sarah to send. The delivery box is huge, and Kim has no idea what it is about to be. Lee then asks Kim to open the box. Immediately after opening, Kim stands there contemplating for some time if that is how he is going to win against Daebong. Just 3 weeks later, Kim is standing right in front of Daebong, waiting for their fight to begin. Daebong puts a cigarette in his mouth and calls Kim out for being overconfident. He questions Kim if he really wants to fight him, asking if he is insane. Furthermore, Daebong notices something that Kim is carrying with him, but he is confused if that's how Kim thinks he is going to defeat Daebong. Turns out that the package Lee asked Sarah to deliver was a pair of massive gloves. With those huge gloves, Kim stands in the middle of the crowd, face to face with Daebong. Meanwhile, the entire crowd thinks of this as a joke. They find Kim stupid for choosing gloves as his weapon to take on his mountainous opponent. Daebong takes it a step further and even asks Kim if he thinks this is a comedy club, confirming if he is joking or not. Meanwhile, Kim recalls Lee telling him that these gloves are the only way for him to overpower and defeat Daebong. Kim prepares to fight with Daebong with the massive gloves that Lee has for him. Turns out that 3 weeks earlier, when their package arrives, Lee explains to Kim that he will be using these gloves to fight with Daebong. However, Kim is unsure after seeing how big those gloves are. Compared to the size of Kim himself, the gloves are almost as big as him, but Lee believes that they will be perfect for him to counter Daebong during their fight. On the other hand, Kim believes that he will be made fun of and get even more bullied for wearing those gloves. Lee does not think the same way though, and she even explains to Kim that he should start listening to her rather than talking back. Finally, Kim is convinced enough to carry these gloves into the fight. Soon, they begin their training session, and Lee grabs a baseball bat, asking Kim to defend it using his gloves. Immediately after hearing this, Kim's face turns blue from the shock. He thinks that it will be almost impossible for him to stop a strike from a baseball bat even with those massive gloves, but Lee thinks otherwise. She again reminds Kim that he is talking back. Furthermore, Lee points out to Kim how Daebong is a humongous boy. She judges the size of Daebong and believes that a punch from him will be very devastating, so she wants to train Kim accordingly. She believes that Kim needs to learn how to block a punch of that caliber with those massive gloves before moving to the next step. Just like that, Kim's training begins after he agrees to put a stone on his heart. Lee performs her first strike toward Kim with the baseball bat, and he gets sent flying way back. He was not able to take the hit and decided to give up on holding his ground. However, this blunder of him results in some scolding from Lee, who tells Kim to at least try and hold his ground. She notices that Kim is not even putting any effort into standing and doesn't budge when the hit gets in contact with him. Getting annoyed, Lee tells Kim that he will be going through hellish lower body training for this blunder, and that he will be doing this until he is ready to stand his ground while taking a hit from the baseball bat. From that day onward, Lee had to duck walk to school. Even though people found him crazy for walking in an awkward posture, Kim did not give a shit, realizing that this was necessary for him to do. Furthermore, he had to sit in his class on an invisible chair as it was instructed by Lee to do so. Even while eating, he had to sit like he was sitting on an invisible chair. At the cafeteria, Kim starts feeling uncomfortable in that posture and even complains about it to Lee, but gets asked to continue his training. Lee even reminds Kim not to talk with her in school as she finds it very annoying. Moreover, Kim even had to poop on the toilet as if he was sitting on an invisible chair. That's how harsh his training was. Later, Kim had to occupy a certain posture for Lee to sit on him and smoke. Thereupon, Lee looks back and asks Kim if he likes the feeling of her butt on him. However, Kim points out that his legs are about to break. Shortly after, he falls on the ground as he cannot take it anymore, causing Lee to blame him for falling intentionally and accusing him of being a pervert once again. 2 weeks later, after some really harsh training, Lee checks Kim's ability to stand his ground once again. She proceeds to strike Kim with her baseball bat, and this time Kim manages not to move from his place, while taking the hit on his massive gloves like a champ. She hits him once again but gets blocked yet again, realizing that Kim has really learned how to hold his ground. Thereafter, Lee makes a grand revelation, explaining that mastering this technique means that there are 90% chance for Kim to efficiently take on Daebong all by himself. Meanwhile, in the present, Daebong stands in front of hilariously looking Kim with huge gloves donned on him. Daebong calls out Kim for picking up this fight and threatens to show him his place. He proceeds to perform the first strike, but somehow Kim manages to block it. From Kim's perspective, he immediately feels the power of Daebong. At first, he believes that the strength behind Daebong's punch is the same as Lee with the bat, but later he realizes that Daebong's power is much higher than he initially anticipated. Meanwhile, The crowd finds it hilarious that Kim is using gloves bigger than his own size, but at the same time finds it impressive that he can block Daebong's punches. Daebong then realizes that Kim will try to block his attacks again, so he proceeds to rain punches at him to see how long he will be able to block off his attacks. Slowly, Daebong starts to feel pumped up as he starts making trashy comments toward Kim, calling him out for daring to challenge him. Meanwhile, Kim keeps on blocking his attacks, while thinking how things are going exactly as he expected them to. Turns out that Kim wants Daebong to feel excited. The scene then shifts to a flashback, where Lee explains to Kim that she used to go to a gym, where she used to spar with fatzos just like Daebong. During her fights with them, one thing Lee noticed was common among all of them: they would get tired really quickly. I guess that's what should be expected from the likes of Daebong with the huge size of bodies. This information surprises Kim greatly as he realizes that this can be easily used against them. Thereafter, Lee explains to Kim that he just needs to last for 30 seconds, and after that, Daebong will start feeling tired after all his energy gets depleted. Meanwhile, in the present, Kim keeps on countering Daebong's attack without attacking him back. On the other hand, Daebong has no idea what Kim's plan is. He even calls him out for having a foolish plan, and clarifies that this won't help him much with the fight. Earlier, Lee had told Kim that if he can last for 30 seconds, then the bulky bully will be exhausted and will slow down. After that happens, Lee advises Kim to rush in to hit Daebong with a headbutt. Kim goes on to follow exactly how Lee had advised him to do, and even finds success in her strategy. The plan to use Daebong's slow movement as an advantage to headbutt him works in Lee's favor, and somehow, he has managed to land a blow on a guy that's 4 times the size of Kim. Kim rushes in and dashes toward Daebong, hitting with a headbutt right at his chin. With that, the saliva forcefully comes out of Daebong's mouth as his head tilts back with the impact of Kim's attack. With a chilling look in his eyes, Kim watched as Daebong fell to the ground. In a flashback, we see Lee reminding Kim that a strike on a jaw will make anyone pass out, even if they are very strong and muscular. All Kim needed was just one hit on Daebong's chin, and voila. But it is not confirmed whether the battle between the two has ended or not. Kim notices that Daebong's eyes are rolled back. However, instead of falling backward, Daebong falls forward, crushing Kim in the process. With the thudding sound, everyone in the crowd realizes that Kim just got seriously hurt. Meanwhile, Kim is finding it difficult for him to breathe with a bulldozer of a guy lying on top of him. In no time, Daebong regains his consciousness, but has no idea what the heck is going on. He begins to wonder about what is going on around him. One thing he does remember, though, is that he needs to teach Kim Jae-hyuk an important lesson of staying in his place. We then discover that Lee had told Kim that he would be done if he somehow managed to mess things up and not win with the headbutting technique. Lying on the ground, Kim recalls this and begins to cry, realizing that there is nothing he can do now but to get his ass beaten by a sumo wrestler, Daebong. Meanwhile, the crowd is enjoying every bit of this fight. They find it very hilarious that a mountain of a guy fell on a skinny loser, Kim. Meanwhile, Lee appears concerned, worrying how Kim will manage to get out of this situation. Thereafter, Daebong alarmingly tells Kim that he is doomed now, and that the only thing left for him to do now is to get beaten up gracefully without resisting. Meanwhile, Kim is displeased with his efforts. He recalls how the headbutt was supposed to be a critical hit, but now that he sees that it didn't work, he has no idea what to do now. Simultaneously, the crowd thinks the same as Kim. They believe that he is completely screwed now, and the only thing left for him to do is to indeed get beaten up. Suddenly, a man walks amid the crowd, excusing himself and asking them to make way for him. The people in the crowd point out to him how the place is jam-packed, and that there is no other way for him but to watch the fight from the back. One of the students in the crowd curiously tries to find out who this guy is. Turns out that the guy making way into the crowd is a sophomore. It appears that he and his mates were bored, which is why they have decided to spectate this hilarious fight between an elephant and an ant. The sophomore then introduces himself as Han Philip, and he happens to be 18 years of age. Another sophomore named Jong Daniel, also 18 years of age, asks Philip if he finds these kinds of fights amusing. The students in the crowd are left wondering as to why there is a foreigner in the Youngman High School. The two sophomores then make their way to the front of the crowd and see that the fight has already begun. Moreover, Philip sees that a fat guy is already on top of a skinny one and immediately tells Daniel that they should have come earlier. Meanwhile, Lee notices the two English-speaking dudes and wonders what's their deal. Thereafter, Philip grows excited as Daebong decides to take things a step further. He proceeds to start raining punches on Kim, telling him to be ready to get beaten to death. Kim tries to block Daebong's first punch, but the posture he is currently lying in doesn't allow him to be much effective defensively, causing Kim to enter a stage where he can do nothing but get beaten up. With that, Daebong continues to keep hitting Kim like an animal and has no intentions of stopping anytime soon. Philip notes that Kim is taking too much of a beating and wonders if they should be interfering in the fight. He believes that Kim is going to die at this rate. Meanwhile, Lee appears concerned for the loser as well and wonders if he is just going to let the fight end like this. She believes that Kim needs to keep fighting and even starts rooting for him, although she again gets Kim's full name wrong. However, that doesn't matter. What matters is that Kim has someone who wants to see him succeed. However, Daebong continues to punch the life out of Kim while he is helpless. The scene then shifts to a flashback where Kim is looking at what seems to be a UFC fight. There, he sees a boxer pinning his opponent by staying on top of him and constantly punching him. Seeing this, Kim's interest peaks, wondering what would happen if he were to get in a situation like that. He immediately turns to Lee and asks her if there is a way for him to counter this move. Immediately, with no second thoughts, Lee tells Kim that he won't be able to escape. She further clarifies that Daebong is probably more than 100 kilos, and if someone of that weight sits on top of a weak boy like Kim, then there is no way for him to escape. She asks Kim to lose all his hopes and dreams if somehow Daebong manages to get on top of him. Now that's one way to destroy someone's morale. Kim begins to question if there is really no other way and questions if jujitsu can help in such a situation. Hearing the name jujitsu, Lee realizes that there is indeed a way, but is not sure if someone like Kim can pull it off on a guy like Daebong. However, Kim requests Lee to teach him anyhow, and even offers to help her study hard in return. Lee then warns Kim that he will need to practice a lot to get better at this move. She then proceeds to lie on a floor mat and asks Kim to get on top of her. Immediately, Kim starts getting weird ideas, but Lee is quick to remind him that they are learning jujitsu, and this seems to be the only way. Kim then moves on top of Lee, and as soon as she begins to explain to him, the scene shifts to the present, where Kim is getting beaten the shit out of him. Daebong warns Kim that he will make him pass out by beating him consistently, and explains that this is what he gets for resisting being his lackey. With a fearsome tone, Daebong tells Kim that this is the survival of the fittest and losers like him don't deserve any place here. That is their destiny. Hearing the word destiny triggers the previous bullying moments for Kim, where Daebong made him swallow a spider and told Kim that it is his destiny to be treated like a piece of shit. Kim finds this false and believes that no such thing as a doomed destiny exists for losers like him. Going back to Lee teaching Kim jujitsu, she explains to Kim that the only way for him to get out of the position where someone is sitting on top of him is to bend one of his legs and then turn his body to form a shoulder bridge. This way, when one of Kim's knees lifts, it will make his opponent lose balance, and then Kim will be able to push his hips out of the empty space and escape. Listening to this technique, Kim appears very excited. Going back to the present, Kim performs the same technique as it was taught by Lee, and manages to escape from the position of Daebong sitting on top of him. After escaping, Kim immediately gets up and strikes his left punch toward Daebong's chin. This punch greatly excites the crowd, as they see Kim finally landing a successful punch with his massive gloves. Meanwhile, Philip finds Kim's move to be quite impressive, and is left in a state of awe. Simultaneously, Lee stands right beside Philip, watching the fight closely, observing every Kim's move to see if he is doing according to what she taught him. One of the guys from the crowd is surprised to see that Kim can not only block with those huge gloves, but can also strike back. However, one thing that makes him curious is the thought of getting hit by those gloves actually hurt or not. Standing there, waiting to make his next move, Kim recalls Lee telling him that the only way for him to win this fight is through a headbutt, and that there is no way to take Daebong down using the massive gloves. So she advises Kim to keep on fighting until he finds an opportunity to end the fight with a headbutt. Kim proceeds to strike Daebong with a left jab and then uses the right jab. He keeps on hitting Daebong with jabs until he starts to bleed. Kim then backs up and begins to take a run toward Daebong yet again, this time with his arms spinning like crazy in the air. It appears that Kim is trying to hit Daebong with a double jab at the same time, and such an awkward move is found hilarious by the crowd. They believe that this attack is not going to do any damage at all. As Kim is about to hit Daebong, the tables turn, the situation changes, and Daebong proceeds to lift off the massive gloves from Kim's arms and dons them on himself. Just a while ago, Kim was confident enough to end the fight as he found his momentum. He had the perfect opportunity to achieve another milestone in a short span of time, defeating another notorious bully. However, the tables have turned, and the once confident Kim is not fearing for his life. Seeing this, even Lee is scared for Kim now, and has no idea how he will be able to get out of this drastic situation. Meanwhile, Daebong stands there, with his head held